Grade 8 and welcome back to WorksheetCloud Maths, and this is our second lesson in decimals. I hope you're all well today and ready for today's lesson with your calculators ready and a piece of paper, because you know that I'm going to ask you to do some stuff on your own, some calculations on your own. Let's see what today holds. As I said, it's the second lesson in our decimal series, and we are going to look at addition and subtraction, and we're going to use, first of all, we're going to look at how to use the place value chart. So that's to start, and then we'll use the place value chart while we are doing addition and subtraction, and then try without the place value chart. Okay, I know you might think this is a bit silly, but it's just to show you about those noughts that come at the end of a number, or the ones that are placeholders, and how important they both are. Okay, right. Place these numbers on the place value chart. Have a look at the place value chart first. You'll see that it's gone up to hundreds. Obviously, we know it goes up to thousands, 10,000s, 100,000s, millions, etc. Okay, then it's hundreds, tens, units, then the decimal comma, then tenths, hundredths, and thousandths. We can write it like that, or we can write it in words. Remember, tenths with a th at the end, hundredths with a th at the end, and thousandths with a th at the end. Another thing that you could possibly see in your workbooks at some stage is that everything on the left hand side of the comma is written with capitals. Everything on the right hand side of the comma, if you were to use words, is written with small letters, with lowercase letters. Okay, so let's have a look at the numbers that we have to put onto our place value chart. The first one is 305,251. Again, I'm sure you've learned this already, but just to revise, 305, we say 305 because they are whole numbers, but we don't say comma 251 because it's not 251. They are not whole numbers. So they are, remember, they are fractions of a number. So we say comma 251. We need to say each digit on its own. Okay, so let's put this one onto the place value chart. So obviously the 3 goes in the hundreds, the 0 in the tens, that's a placeholder, the 5 in the units. That placeholder of the 0 is very important because if we left it out, we would say 35. Okay, then we put in our decimal comma, and then 2 under the tenths, 5 under the hundredths, and 1 under the thousandths. Okay, so there we have 305,251. All right, let's have a look at the next one. 91,023. 9 under the tens, 1 under the units, there's the decimal comma, 0 under the tenths, 2 under the hundredths, and 3 under the thousandths. Okay, again, you can see that that naught is a placeholder. It is very important. We cannot leave it out, otherwise it will change the value of the number. Okay, the next one is 645,910. Now let's have a look here. 6 under the hundreds as normal, 4 under the tens, 5 under the units, our decimal comma, then 9 under the tenths, and 1 under the hundredth, and we can put that naught under the thousandth, but if we take that naught away, do you see that it will not change the value of the number? And that's why I said to you in the previous lesson, if you put in the naught, it's fine. If you don't, it is also fine. But if you are asked ever to round off to the third decimal place, then you must have 3 decimal places, which means that naught needs to go in. But in general working, in general use, you do not need to put that naught in. It has no value, and it doesn't change the value of the whole number. Whereas here, this has no value, you're right, but it does change the value of the number if we leave it out there, and the same over here. If we leave that one out, it's going to change the value of the number. Right, let's have a look at the next one, 2,008. So we put the 2 under the units. We can also call the units ones, by the way, but it's better to call it units. 2 under the units column, comma, your decimal comma in, and then our placeholders, 0 under the tenths, 0 under the hundredths, and 8 under the thousandths. Can you see, once again, if we leave those noughts out, we are going to change the value of the number, because 2,008 or 008 is very different to 2,8. So please make sure that when they are placeholders and they, if left out, they are going to change the value of the number, you don't leave them out. Right, The last one is 163,800. So 1 under the hundreds, 6 under the tens, 3 under the units, your decimal comma, 8 under the tenths, and then 0, 0. We can leave those zeros out. Like I said to you before, with this one here, we can leave that 0 out because it's not going to change the value of the number. The same with this. It's not going to change the value of the number. But in this case, where it's 2,008, you leave those zeros out, it's going to change the value of the number. The same in the first one and the second one. The zeros appear within the number, and so if we leave them out, they will change the value. Okay, let's use the table as a guide and let's add. So we're going to use that table again just to make sure that we put things in the right column, because guys, if we don't, we could get a completely messed up answer. Okay, so we've got 3,458, and we're going to add on 9,329. There's our table. So what are we going to do? We're going to put our numbers in the correct column, and then we are going to add. Okay, so 3 in the units, comma, under the decimal place, 4 under the tenths, 5 under the hundreds, and 8 under the thousands. Okay, 3,458. Everybody happy with those places? Right, now we're going to add on 9,329. 9 under the units, your comma under the decimal place, 3 under the tenths, 2 under the hundreds, and 9 under the thousands. Remember, it's 3,458, not 3,458, and it's 9,329, not 9,329. Remember, as I said earlier, these are not whole numbers, so we have to actually, when we speak the number, when we say the number, we actually have to say them separately. Okay, so let's add. All right. There's our line that we put in. It's an oversized equal sign, but I've just put in one part of that line. You could put another part underneath there. It's up to you. Okay, 8 plus 9 is 17, so we write the 7 down and carry the 1. As you can see, that would be 17 thousandths, so the 1 goes into the hundredths column. 5 plus 2 is 7, plus the 1 that you carried over is 8. Nothing to carry over there, so 4 plus 3 is 7. Don't forget your decimal comma, and then 3 plus 9 is 12. So that answer is 12,787. Okay, everybody happy? Remember to carry over any number that is greater than 10 or greater. It needs that 1 needs to go in there. Okay, so that it goes into the next column. We can't write 17 over here because that would push it into the 10 thousandths column, and we're not working with that. All right. Okay, let's go on. Here's another one to do. We've got 16,392 plus 92,827. Okay, there's our place value chart. Let's put it in. Okay, the 1 goes into the tens column, 6 into the units, our decimal comma, then 3 under the tenths, 9 under the hundreds, and 2 under the thousands. Okay, everybody happy? Then we're going to put 9 under the tens, 2 under the units, our decimal comma, 8 under the tenths, 2 under the hundreds, and 7 under the thousands. Okay, we're adding those together. We put in our equal sign. 2 plus 7 is 9. 9 plus 2, here we're going to have a carryover. So 1 goes into that column, and then 1 goes into our tenths column, because that 9 plus 2 hundredths will give us 11 hundredths. We can't put the 11 in one column, just like you've always done since you started adding this way. Okay, 3 plus 8 is 11, plus the 1 that we carried will give us 12. So we now carry over the 1 to the units. Don't forget our decimal comma, but 6 plus 2 is 8, plus the 1 that we carried over will be 9, and then 9 plus 1 will be 10. And our answer is now 109,219. Okay, everybody happy? Right, let's have a look at subtraction now. We've got 15,615 minus 4,584. Again, we're going to use our place value chart. So we're going to put 1 in the tens, 5 in the units, our decimal comma, 6 in the tenths, 1 in the hundreds, and 5 in the thousands. Okay, we then are going to subtract 4 units. We don't have any tens here. It's 4 units, comma, 5 in the tenths, 8 in the hundreds, and 4 in the thousands. Again, guys, one thing that you can do is please always make sure that your commas are underneath one another, because then the rest of your numbers should be in the correct columns. Okay, so if your commas are not underneath one another, it will throw your adding or subtracting out. Right, let's start with this one. Okay, we're going to start on this side as per usual. 5 minus 4 we can do, it's 1. 1 minus 8 we can't do, so we're going to borrow from the 6. Cross out the 6 and make it a 5. And remember, now we're taking 1/10 across. 1/10 is the same as 10 hundredths. We're not going to write 10 here though, because that's also the same as 10, never mind, let's carry on. Sorry about that. Okay, so we're taking 1 across, and it's going to be 10 tenths plus the 1/10 we have already. It's going to be 11 tenths, or 11 over 100. Okay. And then we subtract. 11 minus 8 is 3. We can do the 5 minus 5 is 0. Don't forget our decimal comma. 5 minus 4 is 1. And 1 minus nothing is 1. So our answer is 11,031. Okay, sorry about the explanation for that little lot, but you understand what I'm meaning. Okay, does everybody get that? Right? Remember, we have to borrow. When we're borrowing across like that, we put it like that, and that will give us 11 hundredths. Okay, because 1/10 is 10 hundredths. Okay, everybody understand? I'm sure you do. Okay, next one. 33,069 minus 14,68. Now this 0 could cause us a little bit of trouble, but it probably won't, because you've done this without using the comma before in previous grades, where you've had 33,069 minus 1,468, and I'm sure you've managed with that perfectly. So let's just use our place value chart again. We're going to put our 33 under the tens and the units. We're going to put our decimal comma in, and we're going to put in 0 under the tenths, because we've got no tenths. Remember, that placeholder is very important. The 6 under the hundredths, and the 9 under the thousandths. Okay, then we're going to put in our 14, 1 under the tens, 4 under the units, our decimal comma, and we've got 6 under the tenths and 8 under the hundredths. We are not given any value for the thousandths, so we can either put in a placeholder as 0, or we can just leave it out. It's going to make no difference. Right, our big equal sign, and we are going to subtract. 9 minus nothing will give us 9. Again, like I said, you can put in the 0 there if you feel more comfortable, because it's not going to change the value of this number at all, but it might be easier for you to see where you got that 9 from. If you're quite happy to leave it out, you still understand where you're getting the 9 from, absolutely perfect. This one is a different story though. Right, 6 minus 8 we can't do. So we go to the next column and see if we can borrow. Well, it's 0, so we can't borrow anything from there. So we've got to go all the way across to the 3 and borrow from there. That becomes 2 units left. We then take that across to our tenths, and we make that 10 tenths, because you know that that is 1. But we've got to borrow 1 from those 10 tenths. That then becomes 9. And we take the 1 across to the 6. Okay, so let's just go over that again. We couldn't borrow from the 0. There was nothing to borrow. So we've got to cross right over our decimal place, our decimal comma, and we can borrow 1 from the units. Now, if we think about it, this actually means it's 100 hundredths, basically. Well, it's 100, but it comes from the units, so its value is 100. And if it's 100 hundredths, it would be 1 whole. Okay, everybody understand that? So we've basically, what we've done is we've borrowed a whole. But we have borrowed a whole through our tenths, and our tenths, 10 tenths is 1 whole as well. We've borrowed from there, and that would give us 9 tenths left, and that is the other tenth that we've borrowed. Okay, everybody happy? So now 16 minus 8 will give us 8. 9 minus 6, will give us 3. Don't forget your decimal comma. 2 minus 4 we can't do, so again we've got to go to the column to the left, and we've got to borrow. That becomes a 2. Now we've got 12 units. 12 minus 4 will give us 8, and 2 minus 1 is 1. So our answer here is 18,389. Right, happy with that? Everybody sees how to borrow across the 0. I'm sure you've done this many times in the primary school, so you will know exactly how to do it. Okay, let's try without the chart. All right, it's not a big deal. You've done this before. It's just making sure you put in the placeholders where they are needed, and you can leave them out where they are not needed. So we've got 72,386 plus 12,209. Let's set it out underneath each other, making sure that your commas are underneath one another, because then that will line up the rest of the calculation. Right, put in our equal sign. 6 plus 9 gives me 15, so I've got to put down the 5 and carry the 1 above the 8. That doesn't give you 18. It's now become a hundredths in this case. So it's 8 hundredths plus 1 hundredth will give us 9 hundredths. Okay, then it's 3 plus 2, which will give me 5. Don't forget your comma. 2 plus 2 is 4, and 7 plus 1 is 8. Okay, everybody happy? When you're carrying over, when you are adding, remember that now becomes 1 in the next column, and you have to add it in. Okay, right, so it's 84,595 is the answer. Okay, let's try without the chart. Let's do a subtraction. Again, concentrating on those placeholders. If you don't need it in, it's fine, you can leave it out, but in this case it is very valuable there. If we left it out, it would be a unit instead of 10. So we're going to write 15,593, line up our commas, we're going to have 12,209, and we're going to subtract. Right, first thing, 3 you cannot take 9 away. In this case, you could if you were just doing 3 minus 9 would be minus 6, but we're not doing it in this case. Okay, 3 minus 9, we got to borrow from that 9, so that becomes an 8, and we put the 1 by the 3, and that becomes 13 minus 9, which will give me 4. 8 minus 0 is 8. Sorry guys, I just realized that the second number had been copied down incorrectly, so I've fixed that now. We still need to borrow from the 9, so we will cross out the 9, make that an 8, and we've got 13 minus 4, that gives me 9. 8 minus 5 gives me 3. 5 minus 1 is 4. Don't forget our comma. 5 minus 0 is 5, and 1 minus 1 is 0. Okay, not such hectic borrowing here, but please remember that is very important, that 0 there, and also to, when you are borrowing, to make sure that that becomes 13 instead of 4. Okay, a lot of people, when they put it over there, then they add as though you were taking the carryover, but it's not. Remember, that becomes 13 because it would be 10 hundredths that you're borrowing, which is 1 hundredth that you're borrowing becomes 10 thousandths. Okay, so my answer there is 5,439. Okay, now it's your turn to try. Okay, there are some calculations. Now what I want you to do is pause the video just now, and I want you to work that out. That's why I said to you right in the beginning of the video, make sure you have a piece of paper. Once you have calculated everything, then check using your calculator. Okay, so you're going to write it down on a piece of paper, you're going to work it all out, and then please use your calculator to check. We'll just make double sure. Now some of those look a little bit different because we haven't practiced adding 3 numbers together, but I'm sure you're going to absolutely cream that. And then the last one is also a little bit of a challenge, but I'm sure again you're going to be able to work out exactly how to do that. Right, so pause the video and on you go doing it on your own. When you come back, we'll go over it together. Right, how did you do? First one, we've got 25,01, 3,135, and 6,427. Once again, keep your commas underneath one another. It will ensure that everything is in the right column. Okay, so now we're going to add together. 5 and 7 is going to give me 12. So I'm going to put the 2 down and I'm going to carry the 1. 3 and 2 is 5, plus the 1 is 6, plus the 1 that I carried will give me 7. Okay, 1 plus 4 is 5. Don't forget your comma. 5 plus 3 is 8. 8 and 6 is 14. Carry the 1 over, and 2 plus 1 is 3. Okay, now as I said to you just now, the previous example when we were subtracting, when you're carrying over, that becomes a 1 and you add it in. Okay, when you've taken it across, it is actually going to form part of that number, and it's going to be the 10 added to the number that's already in the column. Okay, let's look at number 2. We've got 165,7 minus 134,893, and I'm going to subtract now. But the first thing that we have to do is subtract this column, and there's nothing in this column. So we can now put in placeholders because we need them. Okay, so we put a naught there and we put a naught there, which means that when we borrow, we've got something to borrow to. Okay, if there's just nothing there, it's very hard to see what the value of that 1 that's going to end up in this column. It will just look like a 1 instead of a 10. So put those placeholders in. Okay, once again, make sure your commas are lined up. If they are, everything else should fall into place. So let's borrow from the 7. We're going to be left there with 6 because we're going to take the 1 across here. That's not going to help us for this column, the hundredths column. So we've got to borrow, the thousandth column, we've got to borrow from the hundredth column. And we're going to borrow 1 from there, and that leaves us with 9 there. And we're going to take 1 across to the thousandths. We now have 10 thousandths. So 10 minus 3 is going to give me 7. 9 minus 9 is going to give me 0. 6 minus 8 I can't do. So I'm now going to borrow again from the 5 units. And I'm going to be left with 4 units there, and for a unit that we borrow, we know is 10 tenths. Okay, so now I've got 16 tenths, minus 8 is going to give me 8 tenths. Don't forget the comma. 4 minus 4 is 0, 6 minus 3 is 3, and 1 minus 1 is 0. We don't need to put that 0 in. Everybody happy? Right, let's go on to the last one. Now this one looks a bit odd because the first number we weren't given anything after the decimal place. But if we want to calculate this, we're going to have to put in our 3 decimal places so that when we borrow, we've got something to borrow to. So we're going to put in the 3 zeros so that it makes up the placeholders, and we've got a placeholder to borrow to. So the first thing we have to do is borrow from the 6 units. We're going to borrow 1 and we're going to be left with 5. So that 1 goes over to the tenths. So now we've got 10 tenths. Remember, that's the same as the unit. Okay, 10 tenths, that's not helping us in our thousandths column. We're going to have to borrow from there, and we're going to be left with 9 tenths, taking across a tenth into the hundredths, and we're going to be left with 10 hundredths, which we know is a tenth, and it still doesn't help us in our thousandths column, so we've got to borrow again. Okay, we're going to be left with 9 in the hundredths, and we've got 10 thousandths. Okay, now guys, if we have borrowed like this, basically that's our borrowing done. Whereas here, we borrowed across, but we still had to borrow from the units so that we could work out our tenths column. Right, 10 minus 1 gives me 9, 9 minus 4 is 5, and 9 minus 5 is 4. Okay, don't forget your comma. 5 minus 0 is 5. And there we have our answer to the final one. Alright guys, we finished with our lesson for today, but please remember, if you have any questions or queries about this lesson, to email grade8@worksheetcloud.com, and also don't forget to do the activity that is attached to this lesson. Great. Next time we're going to be looking at multiplication and division. Also not too difficult. Multiplication, we might need a little bit of explanation there, but not too much, and division works the same as before. Right, thank you so much for listening to this lesson. Again, please, if you have any queries or any questions, email grade8@worksheetcloud.com, and don't forget to do the activity. Right, hope you keep well, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye for now.